Well, welcome. Today, Lauren, Christine, and I are going to be talking about solar transits 62 and 56. We're going to be exploring around, seeing what we can learn and what we can play with over the next two periods of 5.5 days. And so we're just coming to the end of a interesting time. Everybody's feeling a little off center. And I could sort of tell from the conversation just before we started that both of you have got stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, tell us.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I have words for it yet, but I think that might be exactly one thing many folks are experiencing. That what we're sensing, what we're going through, there are no words for it. There really are not. And um, if you even look at a snapshot of your day right now and the conversations you're having that you would have never imagined having, or things you're talking about you would have never imagined talking. And I think that in itself presents a challenge.
Because we've forgotten how to do it in a lot of ways. And also we've gotten fearful of what might happen.
Tell
Yeah.
me more about that, Lois.
Yeah. I don't know. But because I've been thinking a lot about this lately too, is like it feels like there's the conversations you can't seem to have because nobody wants to dip their toe into that arena because they want everything to stay sort of nice. And then there's the other conversations where there's stuff coming left, right, and center that's really different and having trying to stay more or less centered and grounded in your own perspective while hearing what's coming at you and but then looking around and I've got something going on right now. I've got a sty. And so I went and I looked in Louise Hay and it says, well, you don't like or you're angry at what you're seeing in the world. And I went, well, darn, because everybody in the world should have a sty right now.
Unfortunately, everyone's not angry, right?
I didn't
Yeah.
think I was angry, but
Well, that's what I love about that book is like it really does get you to think about, well, what am I angry about, right? Because I wasn't I'm always wanting to have, some other reason for having a sty, and then it's like, oh, maybe it really is because because something. And like if I really spend a few minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, I am pretty upset about that. Right? I find that book very helpful. I really like it a lot. But yeah, I definitely have been. This is one of the transits that I have really noticed that when the sun was in gate 39, the provocateur, and that whole channel of emoting was on for everybody. I very much felt like every day had at least one example of something where people were just kind of unhinged, right? That whole like high emotion, low emotion thing. I definitely recognize that. The thing that stands out for me the most is on July 3rd. I was in Texas and the boys had some friends over and there were, it's Texas. People do a lot of fireworks in Texas and there was a lot of fireworks going on in the neighborhood. And then one was really loud, like over our house, and turns out it was our boys. And I didn't know that, but it was pretty loud. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. And then, like 2 seconds later, my oldest son walks in and he's like, whoa, well, so just so you know, the neighbor, catty cornered us, just stepped out of his door and like screamed at the top of his lungs, like expletive, 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 la 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 la, and then like slammed his door and went back in. Like just like we've never spoken to this guy ever in our entire, right? And there were tons of other fireworks going on. We lit one, and that was it for him, right? And so I don't know. It was just like that kind of like over the top sort of energy. I felt like I was seeing everywhere. So
But if everyone's feeling this instability, right? It doesn't take much. It
yeah.
it really doesn't take much. Yet, you're sharing that experience, Christine, and on the other side, I'm experiencing things that I could never imagine happening on a very positive note too. And so like those types of experiences where you stand there and your jaw's dropping, you're like, is this really happening? Am I dreaming this, or am I awake, or what is it, right?
Is it real?
Yes, yes, Lois. And how do we know if it's real?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think we're stepping into that time, right? Like this is happening for all of us. Like the veils that we've all been, working with in the illusion, right, are falling. And so I do think it's hard for us to recognize like what is real and what isn't. And, the nature of the world as we're learning about it seems like there might not be much that's real, right? It's really hard for our brains to comprehend, right? We're not meant to really understand that on that physical level. And I think this is becoming, I mean, obviously for me, I'm super excited. Like, I'm like, ooh, this is super cool. I'm curious about it. I want to see what kinds of weird things I'm going to see. I'm mostly regulated, right? But for most people, this is not a cool curiosity moment, right?
Well, because you think about like all these sort of mental constructs that we've been sort of holding together, and like you said, they're sort of falling apart now, and being like curious about what's coming, uh, is like it's really scary for most people because it isn't going to be what they're used to.
I want to just um cast another of how would I say this, input up to this time. And this is Mercury being in retrograde in Cancer. And Cancer is known for deep, strong emotions. I'm a Cancer rising. I know that. I want to tell you, in the last days, I could have been on a soapbox anywhere, anytime, on almost any topic. And I feel like powered inside by it, and everything that I need to say is really important and deep felt. And it doesn't matter if you use the last of the XYZ in the cabinet, or we're talking about where we're going for the next generation. Equal. There's no hierarchy anymore.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. And I think that is kind of reflective too of this, we've been in a few of these root gates. The sun has been in these root gates, right? This fuel, this energy, right? And again, it happens to have been in this very emotive space, right? And gate 55 was wanting the spirit, right? Wanting people to be in community together, wanting things to be good and helpful. And so we have opinions about things when they're not they're not going that way, right? Because we all see and know how things could be better, right? And so I think that I definitely
Mm.
am feeling that energy of like this could be so much better, people, if we could all just get on the same page.
And you feel this is coming from gate 53's energy.
Well, yeah, I think there's a
I
lot
mean,
like well, yes, and we've had, like I said, the 3955 channel of emoting has been on for the entire planet, right? And so that provoking of the spirit, provoking 39 of the spirit in 55 has been just really alive for everyone for, a couple weeks really. And I just feel like I feel like I've just been seeing it everywhere. So I don't know. I'm not sure if we're going to get any reprieve here as we step out of a couple
no,
root gates.
it's going to have a different flavor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but in this period too, we've had like you had July 4th, we had Canada Day,
Mhm.
the whole World Cup thing's been going on, and there's just been like all of this constant opportunity for going places and being together and getting excited.
Mm,
Yeah,
good point.
yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. It is, like I said, it's kind of a nice time to kind of we have a few of those root gates together. We get the sense of what the fuel is. The sun's in this fueling gates, and now in gate 62, we're gonna step into um that is a throat gate, right? And so we have the next two gates are 62 and 56, both of which are throat gates, which is again not the fuel, but it is manifestation, right? It is saying something. And 62 right now happens to be meeting gate 17 in I think it's Uranus. No. Where is it? No. no, Neptune, sorry. So Neptune is, so there's this full channel, right? And we've had this on too for a while. This ability, the ajna to the throat has been activated for the entire planet as well, right? So, this ability to speak your mind coupled with this emoting energy, I'm sure has really brought a lot more forward and a lot more of this kind of, I'm just going to tell you what I think energy, right? So, and that continues. Like that channel is going to continue to be on as gate 62 transits through, the sun transits through 62. And so 62 is the gate of detail, right? It is very much about logically looking at the world and seeing the details of things. It's part of the like naming of things, like organizing things. It's connected to the gate of opinions, right? And so it is a very I know what I think kind of energy, and I've paid attention to the really small things, and I will tell you about why it is so that my opinion is correct because I've looked at all the details, right? Like there is some of that energy in this 62. So it'll be interesting to see how, moving from this, like I said, from the root to the throat, and the lack of the emoting channel hopefully will maybe calm things down a little bit more and make things feel a little bit more maybe logical. I mean, it is a logical gate, let's hope.
Both of the gates we're going to talk about today felt like they're about finding some balance to me. And one of the things that really stood out with 62 is when you look at thunder over mountain, they mirror image each other. And there's this perspective of them looking like a bird. And so it's like the total balance in them reflecting each other. It's but at the other hand is that this gate really highlights all the polarities. It seems to highlight the polarities more than any of the gates that we've looked at so far. And I know in Gene Keys, Richard Rudd talks about 62 being kind of, say, representative of all of the gene keys. It's like you've got 1 and 2 at the beginning and 63 and 64 at the end. And from his perspective, 62 kind of sits all by itself. And that there's something like, it almost feels like a kind of a key to how do you understand each of the gates, which I'm trying to wrap my head around right now. It's because I was just looking at just like with this one, there's at 56, it's 60 is its polarity and it's a limitation. And it's looking at like distraction sort of keeps us in a particular place, but it's a very fragmented place. We're like in all these details and things. And then you've got limitation over here. And so that sort of talks about the need for structure. And as so like thinking about the people I've worked with who like they just hate the idea of structure and have no idea the capacity structure has to really to support you. It doesn't have to be a trap. And yeah, and it just brought up an awful lot of things for me when I was looking at this one.
Isn't that interesting how some really just touch us and there's so many threads, it's hard to know what to communicate here, right? And what might touch someone else. I want to come back and look at the astrology a little bit of this time that is I think you know it's going to flavor this whole gate, and we've got a couple interesting aspects with the sun conjuncting Mercury and then Venus squaring Uranus, but I want to focus in on the new moon and at the same time letting everyone know there's an aspect happening the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, and the 15th, very different. And so if you follow your own astrology, looking where those particular planets land in your chart would be really important. And again, I'll give a plug, and maybe Christine, you could put the link for Kathy Rose's July astrology. I think that would be really helpful for folks. But I want to kind of focus in on this new moon, which kind of falls in the middle here, right? And it's a new moon in Cancer. So here we are with Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So we're feeling introvertedly into these really deep feelings. Did I mix this? Is it a new moon or a full moon? I think
We
it's
just had a full moon.
yeah, thanks. So I'm right. Just doubting myself. That must be coming up somewhere too. And a number of astrologers I have listened to have mentioned that this is a huge pivot point. And it is because, and I'll share that more when we look at the next gate of all the other aspects that are occurring, but that there'll be some incredibly positive energy for a shift. And so we can think about those shifts in our personal life, and we can think about them for humanity. And I think often when we listen to these types of readings, we want to put it out on someone bigger than us, right? Like, well, they need to shift. They should shift. And if they shift, everything would be better. We can all fill in that blank. But the real work is with ourselves, right? And that's where we can immediately feel the effects. And so I think this new moon is a super opportunity to do that and look at a new start for yourself in some arena, a new start in your perspective. So we're in this gate of detail and small action. What a perfect time, right? What one small thing could you put into play with the energy of this new moon?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is interesting because again, the hexagram name is the preponderance of the small, right? And the small here is detail, right? And so this is really, I think, going to be a good time for us if you are inclined to try to shift something in your life, right? Like being able to really focus on the details and look deeply at the details of what it is you might like to shift. Because again, sometimes this is part of what happens is like we often build up in our mind that to shift something we have to change all kinds of things, right? And really the reality is we just need to find one small thing and do it, and then all of a sudden like everything else shifts, right? And so I think that this is an excellent energy for that idea of like, hey, it's about the small things, right? And like I think about that how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? Like that kind of I feel like this is that energy coming forward and hopefully supporting that obviously the astrology, will also be there for us. So I just, yeah, I'm curious as always.
Yeah. It is interesting in this one because there's like sort of two different ways people are connected to details. And there's the ones that they get focused and they get obsessive about it. And then there's the ones that they're a problem for me. Like if the details keep getting in my way. And it's like sort of the ones that are obsessive about it, it's almost like they need to sort of let go of being so sure about a lot of these things and start asking questions. And we're the ones that are getting really, really caught about getting trapped in it. They need to sort of step in and look inward rather than about like how is this controlling me, is more how am I responding to what's going on around me. So there's kind of two different ways a person could wind up needing to approach this particular gate.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, Lois, because what you're talking about is these two gates that we're looking at today, 62 and 56, are mirror gates in the body graph, and they are both the throat expression gates of a particular stream, and this 62 is the expression gate of the stream of understanding, which is a logical stream, right? And so it is really concerned with facts and details and this is like the science stream, right? Like, just give me the facts, give me all the data, and I will make sense of it logically. And so I think that's really a powerful aspect of this because we also 56 is the experiential expression stream. It's the thing that makes the stories, right? And so this is an opportunity to really kind of get some clarity, I think, on really what are the facts on the ground as I understand them. What is the logical, clear-eyed thing? And before we step into 56, which is like, oh, cool, I can, I can make up all kinds of stories about this, right? So these two gates will, I think, work together in that way.
Yeah. Well, this is a gate where you're very much in the mind, right? And so like looking at, so yes, I've got the facts and but do I really understand what these facts are about and what they're telling us? And so getting caught in the details doesn't necessarily show us the big picture, but getting out of our minds and embodying the knowledge. I think it's in the long run probably the gift
Hmm.
to being able to work well with this energy. So it makes me think of like the whole Rene Descartes thing. I think therefore I am. It's like, yeah, but you've got a body too. Yeah. But that's impacted our world for hundreds of years.
Hmm. Well, I'm wondering if the Gemmo I have would help with that embodiment that has me thinking. And actually, I think I can create a story, Christine, on how it would. So I would think what we're in need of when we move into this energy is to make sure what we're seeing is real and true. And so I think those would be great practices alone, just to ask ourselves, is this real? Is this true? So we want to make sure we see accurately. And Lois, the two extremes you were talking about, neither one of those groups can see accurately, right? Because one is overwhelmed by it and checks out, one is too fixated, they can't see it. And so this brings us to Ginkgo. And Ginkgo improves the eyesight. That's its first number one job that it does. Um, but it has a couple other things that it does. It sharpens the mind to bring mental clarity, which is exactly what we need if we're going to see accurately. And it sharpens the mind in such an effective way that sometimes it can be difficult to sleep with if you take this too late in the day because the mind is working so effectively, and it brings energy to your ability to focus. So if you're and I tend to be one of those that details don't, that's, I don't know if they get in the way, but it blurs my head. Like I can feel right here when anyone's talking about details, it hurts. And so this would help you have the energy to stay focused with those details and see what you couldn't see previously. But here's a third thing that Ginkgo does. And this is where I'm thinking of the embodiment, improves circulation, particularly into the limbs, but throughout the body. So if we're that's what's missing in embodiment is really having it move through the body. Um, I could imagine a really beautiful meditation would be before you're taking the ginkgo to ask for its help to embody whatever that is that you're in need of at the moment.
And while you were doing that meditation, you could allow yourself to feel into all of the senses in your body, which takes us to 56.
Yeah, it sure does. Perfect segue.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Lois. Yeah, so we're in 62 from the 13th to the 18th of July, and then on the 19th of July, the sun moves into gate 56. Like I said, it's the mirror gate. It's also a throat gate. And it's part of the experiential stream, right? This is the energy that wants experiences, and this is the gate of stimulation, right? Like it is looking for interesting things in the world. It's looking for things that it can, and ideas. It connects to the gate of ideas in the ajna, looking to find cool, interesting ideas so that it can, make up and share stories about it, right? Like it wants to be stimulated. It loves stories. It's a good story. We think of it as a storytelling gate. It is the channel of curiosity, right? So there is this real deep understanding that this is what we're here for, right? We're here for experience, and that we have to go through all the things, right? We have to have stimulation. And so I think, it's also the Wanderer is the name in the hexagram, which I just kind of like. I think if I had my druthers, I would just wander all the time. I just think that's the best way to find things. Like, oh, look, that thing, I didn't even know that thing was there. Look at that. Um, but yeah, so it is, again, I think it's going to be an interesting thing to have both of these throat gates together. One, again, that's more logical and linear and a bit more fact-based, and then this other aspect of the throat manifestation, which is communicating through, stories and through more experiential means, and just maybe comparing and contrasting them a little bit to see what that feels like.
This gate is one of the ones that's stands out in my profile. And it's thinking about what I just said about paying attention to your senses. And in this gate, the senses are actually referred to as the five thieves because they're the things that distract us. They take us out into the what's going on. Well, I'm feeling this, I'm smelling that. I'm like, oh, there's another squirrel over there, kind of thing. And it's like looking at the getting distracted. And then I was also looking at like getting distracted can be two things too. Is getting distracted can take you away from yourself, from what you're thinking and what you're feeling. But what about flow? Because flow is a complete distraction from everything. You don't even notice, like time, hours can go by when you're in flow, and you don't even notice there could be music playing and all kinds of things. And it's so there's like this one way of being negatively distracted and a way of being very positively distracted. Because things happen when you're in flow, and things get stuck when you're just distracted.
Which, Lois, I think I found myself distracted and all that.
See, I was storytelling.
Well, it was leading me somewhere, which a good story does, right? And it leads us to unknown places. That is when you're listening to a good storyteller because you start wandering yourself. And gosh, I think we could talk so much just about this term, and we think historically the storytellers that traveled and came into towns to tell stories, and so stories help us travel to places. That's what myths are too. They transport us to a understanding that we can't understand on this plane, right? They help. They're a gateway, and it's interesting, Christine. I didn't realize Lois and I both have this gate activated. So
We all do.
oh, do you too?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and it's my moon. Yeah.
I love that. That's probably why we enjoy doing this so
Yeah,
much.
probably.
Yeah, exactly. Huh. Fascinating. So I want to, can I talk about astrology for a minute? Because it's kind of big, and the truth is, it is way above my pay grade to even dive into explaining it. But what I will do is direct you to where you can find this out. And honestly, folks, I mean, I'm already feeling this. If you're sensitive, you are totally feeling this. And it is a lining up of planets that just there is not a lot of precedence for this exact lineup. So what we've got is it beginning the 15th, which is actually during gate 62, and the energy continuing on through the 20th of July. So that takes us in through 56. And I would recommend Pam Gregory does an excellent short recording on this topic specifically. She's calling it the bowl. Most astrologists I've heard call it the basket, but it's the lineup of the planets forming this. And they're all quoting this very famous French astrologer who has since passed, who um, predicted that this would be the turning point for humanity. He also accurately, posthumously predicted the pandemic, and then died just months before it. Anyway, this is very powerful, and I would definitely say take a look at Pam Gregory's recording. If you're short on time, zip all the way into 18 minutes, and from that point you can get exactly what you need to know. But there's so much going on. We've got 4 outer planets aligning, and Jupiter's amplifying everything that they're expressing. So that's really powerful. And let me just tuck this one in. And then at the very end, on the last day of 56, Mercury goes direct. So it's really it's like it's closing this, like the bookends on this time period for the moment. It's like holding space for all that activity that was going on.
It's interesting in that in the gene keys, this is a stop codon, this particular gate.
Tell us more about that, Lois.
Well, there's in the 64 gates, there's 3 different gates that are they bring an end to something. It's like that, knowing when to stop, knowing when things need to shift and change. So but it's like you just said, like at the end of this particular gate, that's going to come to an end. And it's just that, isn't that fascinating that this is during one of these stop codons?
Yeah, yeah, these are the genetic, because the gene keys posit essentially that these are our genetics, right? That the energies, the archetypal energies of each of these gates or gene keys that we're talking about correspond to our actual DNA. And in the DNA sequencing, there are stop codons and start codons. And so 41, which we talked about at the beginning of the year, is a start codon, and 56 is one of the others. I think 12 is another, and I can't remember the third stop codon.
Yeah, I forget too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is interesting. I think, all of what you both are talking about makes me really think about Gate 56. The keynote sentence is stability through movement, the perpetuation of continuity through the linking of short-term activity, right? And so this stability through movement, I really love, and I totally identify with that too, right? Like again, like there's a fine line between being busy just to be busy and moving just to not be, feel stuck. But there is something in my being that really responds to this stability through movement. And it does sound kind of like that's what we're talking about, right? Like we're bringing stability back in. In some ways, we haven't been moving, right? In some ways, we've been stuck as a species, I think. And so the more stable place is change in some ways, right? Is the moving through. And so I am super curious to see, especially now, I didn't realize all of that astrology was going on in the background. So I'm super curious to see how
And
that.
it all lines up. Isn't that amazing?
It always does, Lois. It always does.
I mean, it can't not.
Just pointing out the obvious.
I want to say something though, Christine. I think that is very much a manifesting generator need. It's kind of the movement is the drug for manifesting generators. And having a number in my life, I find the best way to converse with them is when I'm moving and doing some kind of activity. And that is actually the hardest time for me to have a deep conversation. I immediately want to sit down and let me take all this in. Right?
I notice that when they really go off kilter for me, something's gone wrong, the best thing I can do is go for a walk or dance or just do something to get the energy
Yeah.
moving again, because it's where it's sitting is not comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is, we're all generator types. I do think that that is true for generator types, but it is curious that we all carry this energy and we each have a slightly different experience of it. Although Lauren, I would say that you probably on your own
Oh,
would seek movement
100%.
too, right? Yeah.
100%. And these small tasks, I mean, that's just what I do in my farm and garden work,
Yeah.
right? I go and move from one small thing to,
Yeah.
maybe they aren't all small, but
Yeah.
from one thing to the next. And that feels super stabilizing to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's how we were designed too, right? All of us were designed to be working that way, right? We were all designed to be out doing, foraging for food and, hunting and doing small tasks around the fire or whatever, because that's how things get done, right? One small task at a time. And we've just kind of removed ourselves from this. And again, when you think about a classic, modern day workplace, I mean, how little movement most people get, right? And so, how destabilizing I mean, if this sentence is true, stability through movement, how destabilizing it must be to be in these situations where we're sitting still almost, 8, 10 hours a day, right? So it is interesting, I think, to think about that as a piece of also of experience, right? Like this is what this gate is trying to do. It's trying to get us out and get us new experiences to in order to progress as a species, right? It's a collective gate. It needs stimulation in order to evolve us, right? And so I think about how that really is so not reflective of so much of modern life, and how that's affecting us so deeply.
Yeah. And how I mean, this is a collective gate, so it's like how it affects all of us at the same time. I had one thing that came up that's related to the storyteller and some of the work we do in the coherence lab around listening. And it occurred to me that we all tell stories all the time. And we don't actually know if those stories are accurate or they're not accurate. And I was thinking that a really good practice would be to find somebody to listen to you, but to listen to you so that you hear your story, because the truth of your story will show up as you're speaking it. There again, there's that movement, the action, because your throat knows the truth. Right. And it was like like when something's really bothering you and you think I'm fine, I can talk about this. And the first thing you do is you start to tear up as soon as you start to speak, is your throat. It is basically telling on you. But if you're telling a story that's actually false to your embodied being, your your throat will tell you that too. Or your mind will go, ugh, I I can't stand hearing myself say that. There's And so it will help people see their stories for what they really are.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating, Lois, because what you're talking about, it's interesting. Like, if somebody had just this channel of curiosity on in their design, they would be what we call a mental projector, right? Because they just have definition from the throat up, to the head. And that person, they don't have a traditional inner authority like a sacral or emotional or whatever. Their inner authority is essentially this ability to hear themselves. So we tell them, hey, you need a soundboarding person, somebody you can soundboard with, right? Not that they don't give you advice, they don't give you, all they're doing is listening to you so that you can hear your own frequency, right? So it's interesting that you're talking about that in this area, because it is very true, right? Like, we need to hear our own frequency, especially again in these story spaces, right? This is, I think, why so much when talk therapy helps. Often the reason it helps is because people are hearing themselves tell something about themselves to another person, and they're like, "Ooh, that doesn't sound so good."
So good.
You know? So yeah, the soundboarding thing is a very real thing for some people, especially, but I think it's true for all of us, right? We need to hear our own frequency often before we ourselves understand what it is that's going on for us.
And you're also pointing out how important our frequency is. And like with both of these, it actually between the two of these gates is in the what we say, because our frequency impacts how it gets heard in the world. So like there's places where if you're uncomfortable saying something, it's going to come out at a lower frequency. I mean, it'd be something simple like saying, I hate broccoli, you know. or just saying, you know what, I really don't care for broccoli. I mean, that gets received in two extremely different ways. And but that the one's coming from a more solid centered place. So everything we say is like that. There
Man,
must be a Gemmo.
yeah, of course there's a Gemmo. I don't know about for the broccoli problem. I'd really like to talk about that off the camera.
I actually happen to love
I,
broccoli.
I imagine you did. So I want to go back to one of the original places where we started talking about 56 because I think it'll help us understand this Gemmo a little better. And that is this idea of movement and ending up in unknown places. All of us have different experiences with that. I imagine the three of us having this gate, we're really comfortable moving into new places and experiencing them, but there's a good portion of folks that feel that's very destabilizing. And I think this Gemmo will work for both groups equally well, and I'll explain that. So this is the Gemmo is black currant, and what black currant does, it is a compass for transitions. So when we're going from point from north to south, let's say, and we get there, and if we are in the destabilized group, it helps us stabilize our nervous system, and it helps us restore balance. If we're in the group that's like, whoa, I'm in a new place, this can also swing to a place where you're at, you lose focus because you're so excited and all the new things, you're overstimulated. What black currant does really well is work with that overstimulated sensation and make it effective. So what do I mean by that? I means all the cool things that are lighting you up, that you don't have to do them all at once. I think we've all been in that place, and you can put some order to it and say, oh, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. And you feel like, oh, they're going to be around still. If I could just settle here, and because there's a little bit of that, like, oh, I have to do it all now, right? And get it done. So I think black currant is super effective wherever you might find yourself in traveling in new territories. And just to say this is the summer travel period. If you are traveling to new lands and new places, or your in-laws house and it's very familiar, this is a very stabilizing Gemmo for transitions.
And would probably help you open your heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we're regulated, there's room for that.
Yeah.
Well, and given the astrology you just talked about, it sounds like we might be in for a particularly big transition.
Christine, very good point. I would say order up the black currant.
Yeah.
Have it handy. You know, it's actually such delicious Gemmo. If you put it with sparkling water, it's like its own little elixir. So, hey, why not?
Yeah, I have yet to find a reason not to use blackcurrant, honestly. It's just one of my favorites, so I'll have to go back. I haven't had it in a while. So
Oh, I'm gonna try that. I mean, my birthday falls during this, so I'm gonna be
There
a
you
treat.
go. Toast with your blackcurrant spritzer. If you
Yeah,
have those blackcurrant syrups, you know, like the French syrups near
yeah.
you,
oh,
yeah, really a treat.
Mhm. We'll try that. All right. So it feels complete. So thank you for being with us, and we hope we'll see you next time.